I just recorded for about 20 minutes before I realized that I actually didn't even press the record button. So your day, your St. Patrick's Day, your Monday is probably going better than mine. But anyways, round two, I'm nice and warmed up now. Here we go. The Cowboys are telegraphing their draft. If the draft began today, I'm going to tell you who or what the pick would be, almost a guarantee, with a couple different caveats, of course. And I also want to talk a little bit about the new quarterback or the Cowboys' new quarterback, the quarterback that they're potentially eyeing. We wrote about it on cowboyscountry.com. That's the best way to catch me. But right now, the Cowboys are telegraphing their draft, and it's becoming increasingly obvious. My name is Lando, if we haven't met yet, from the Lando Show.
All right.
Excuse me. And this is Sports Below the Surface.
Yeah!
Where we give you, the people like you, the fans, the true fans who are watching this video here, because, you know, after everything transpired last season and after the playoff loss the year prior to the Packers, it's been a bumpy road, you know, but you're still here. And so we are making the push right now to 4,000 subscribers. We'll have our first giveaway at the 5,000 mark, courtesy of Waggle. Once again, St. Patrick's Day here. Shout out to the official sponsor, the official partner of the Lando Show, Waggle Golf. Get your waggleon.com code Hazelton. You don't have to love golf to love Waggle. They got something for everybody. So thank you to the people over there who are supporting this mission. And I cannot wait to continue growing with their help and alongside them. We're going to first look at, I'll obviously use the article written over at cowboyscountry.com today as the guideline, but just want to talk about, 1 week into free agency right now. The Cowboys have created $42 million, they created $55 million of cap space, but they still, as of today, have $42 million to play with. And that's according to Spotrac here. And so, they just recently signed Paris Campbell, okay? 6'2", or 6'2", roughly 210 pounds. Actually, hold on. I feel like I'm botching this one here. Start over. 6'1", 200 pounds. 4.31 receiver out of Ohio State. So you would think that this is a dude that has all the traits, all the measurables, all the speed necessary to be a legitimate threat, somebody that you have to game plan and prepare for. He's not. He hasn't been that. This is actually his fourth team now in as many seasons. And just a season ago with the Philadelphia Eagles, he logged just 6 catches for 30 yards and a touchdown. Okay, so this is a camp body. Okay, let's be clear about that. A guy who's going to compete with the likes of the Ryan Flournoys, Jalen Moreno-Croppers, the Jalen Tolberts, the Jonathan Mingos of the world. For one of the last spots on the roster, the final 53, when they break training camp and get ready for week number 1. So the point being, it's as of today, it's still CeeDee Lamb and a bunch of prayers, a bunch of question marks for Dak Prescott to throw to. Okay, and it's just simply not enough. Now, Kevontae Turpin, I also want to mention, because a lot of people jumped. I think that they jumped the gun based when they saw the contract. I guess the length of it, the life, the duration. And they assume that this is a big deal. The Cowboys are going to get him more involved in the offense, and he's going to be, a focal point even, or a wide receiver 3 or a wide receiver 4, a guy who's a regular contributor on the offensive side of the ball. And that still could be true, but this contract isn't anything that's going to change that. Okay, I want to make sure that's clear, right? You pull up Kevontae Turpin's contract, and you see that, once again, below the surface here. That's what we do. We dig a little bit deeper, okay? We do the best that we can to bring the truth to the true fan. So Kevontae Turpin at Spotrac, 3 years, $13.5 million. Sounds like a pretty substantial amount for a guy who has been just a special teams, or a return ace, right, for his career. Only 44 catches to his name. for his entire career. Okay, so once again, this is not a receiver that you're banking on stepping up and showing out for you on a regular basis. Okay. So on the surface, you see 3 years, 13.5 million. Oh, shoot. Wow. Kevontae Turpin, the Cowboys really like this guy, and they're almost paying him as one of their receivers. No, it's not true. The total guarantees $5 million. Okay. He's at 3.1 million on this year's cap hit. And even Spotrac has it mentioned and listed here, potential out 2026. 1 year, $5.5 million, $2.4 million dead cap. So if they really wanted to, okay, and if things crashed and burned quickly for Kevontae Turpin, which I do not expect, that's not what I'm saying, even remotely. Still only 29 years old. And for a guy that doesn't take a lot of damage or wear and tear, he doesn't get tackled that much because, he's just a return man. It's just a couple times a game, really. He's probably feeling pretty good. Body's in decent shape. Okay. So you can expect and project him to play at a high level, to be an explosive playmaker at special teams at a bare minimum well into his 30s, right? And so this contract obviously is a reflection of that and the Cowboys' belief in him to continue doing this. But just the whole point of this is the Cowboys telegraphing their draft, not Paris Campbell, not Jonathan Mingo from last year, not Kevontae Turpin, precludes them from taking a receiver at 12. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. All right. Because as of today, like at least, the cornerback position is a massive blinking red light as well, as is the running back. But the deal with the running back stuff is, and why, I'm also, just to make sure I'm clear here, I'm operating under the assumption that a player as multi-generationally talented as Ashton Jeanty is not going to be on the board when the Cowboys are selecting. If he is, I think that's no doubt. Okay. But this, just using my own judgment. Okay. Jeanty's not going to be available for them when they select. I hope he is, but he's not. And I don't think that it's going to take the Raiders making the move for him at 6 for that to turn out to be the case. Okay. I think there's a number of teams between where the Raiders are and where the Cowboys are that could pull the trigger regardless of what their current running back room looks like. And I think there's a number of more teams behind them at 12 who would be interested in trading up and jumping the Cowboys at 12 to come and take him. Okay. So it's not, I don't believe that Jeanty is going to be there. And so operating under that assumption, I am confidently stating, based on what we know now, 1 weekend of free agency, still trades, still signings can happen, right? Receiver is the most likely selection for the Cowboys in round 1. Now, the question becomes, okay, looking over at Dane Brugler's big board, Teteroa McMillan was the first receiver on that board. And you got to also mention, shout out to Dane Brugler, by the way. Let's give him some credit here. I'll share my screen so you guys can see exactly what I'm looking at. Oh, and I just realized my audio or my video cut out. So that's cool. I'm just staying hot today, I guess. Can you guys see me? You cannot. Let's hit arm. College try. All right, we at least can see me now. That's cool. Osmo Pocket 3. Nowhere to be found. Let's unplug that. Plug her back in. And we go in.
Yeah!
Hey, we look at that. We got life. Okay. Onward and upward. Fail forward, baby. Tet McMillan ran a 4.48. That's where a lot of this discussion is the wheels are spinning. Now, many members of Cowboys Nation or Cowboys Country, if you will, and once again, if you're unfamiliar, that's where you can catch all my written work, cowboyscountry.com, or just Google Landon-Holifield Athlon Sports. Whatever is easier for you to remember works for me. Ran a 4.48. Okay, he chose not to perform at the combine, not run the 40. That of course raised questions and eyebrows, and people started to speculate. Okay, well, if he's not running the 40, that tells us that he's very slow. Well, in fact, I, like many, would have been more than okay with that pick in round one prior to seeing whatever he had to bring to the table on the 40-yard dash. Okay, the reality is the film says everything. I mean, you see enough. You see speed. You see some separation. You see an, a ridiculous catch radius. Okay, and just back to Brugler's big board here. Here's even there's more context needed, which for me there wasn't, but for a lot of people they were unsatisfied. So looking at the big board, man, like the first player on the list, the multi-generational talent that is Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner, the almost undoubted number one overall pick, one of the top three picks, no question about that. Look what Teteroa McMillan did when he lined up against Travis Hunter. That should speak volumes for you. All right. Now, once again, like Vach Lombardi always says, and shout out to him too. I'm just a guy with a camera and a microphone. But this board here, so where I'm really trying to get at is assume Genty's gone. And this was actually posted mid-February, Dane's initial top 100 prospect big board. So Tet McMillan was listed at 7. I don't know how frequently he's updating this, but so the point is, it's Teteroa McMillan, and then the next receiver on this list is all the way down at 20, and that's Luther Burden. And that's before we even acknowledge what Matthew Golden did. So his name is now firmly within the wide receiver 1 overall mix because of his production at Texas and what the clinic that he put on, the show that he put on for us all at the combine in Indianapolis. So there's a very realistic chance that when the Cowboys are selecting or on the clock at 12, that there's not just one, not just two, and maybe not even just 3 receivers that they have graded in the first round that are instantly inserted into their starting lineup and as wide receiver 2s, even if it's not Tet McMillan. If it's Matthew Golden, if it's Emeka Ibuka, if it's Luther Burden, each of those 3 guys as well are instantly, they make your team better, and they're instantly your wide receiver 2. They all bring a little bit different skill sets to the table, of course. But a lot of people think that Matthew Golden is the most pro-ready guy, the most polished, the most well-rounded of the 4. So if there's more than 2 or 3 guys that you are okay with, that you have as first-round grades, and once again, keep in mind, most experts this year is unique in that regard because most people see or have graded anywhere between 12 and 14 true first-round talents this year. Most years, it's somewhere in the 18 to 22 range, more so. Okay, so that's a pretty big discrepancy. Even if you just want to conservatively say that most years there's 16 to 18, that's still about a 4 prospect difference. And if 3 of those guys in that top, say 12 to 14, let's just say the Cowboys have 14 true first round grades, and all 4 of the top 4 receivers by most accounts are in that list, can you trade back? But you have to ask yourself, first acknowledge that it takes 2 to tango. Okay, saying, "Oh, the Cowboys should trade back," that's an easy thing to say, but the reality is, number one, there's got to be a player worth another team trading up for, and number 2, that player, you've got to be okay stomaching passing on him to take somebody else. But so the key here is that the most likely scenario is that the Cowboys, once again, if the draft began tomorrow, and I have a caveat to this that's very specific, though, and I want to make sure people are paying attention. If the draft began tomorrow, it's most likely a receiver. That's the most likely scenario. But the best case scenario is that they trade back and still get a receiver. You add, I'd have to look at the trade calculator, but if you go from 12 to say 20, that's probably another third round pick. You can still most likely select your pick of the litter at the receiver position. There's a very real chance that any two of those top four that we just mentioned are going to be there, even at 20. Especially if we start talking about guys like Jackson Dart being potential risers and as a prospect in this whole draft process. That helps the Cowboys. That makes, or presumably slides somebody else down into their lap at 12 that they don't necessarily need. Okay, now let's talk about needs. Perfect segue. Look at us. $42 million to spend. You can still make trades prior to the draft. You can still add in free agency if you want to. You better not go into the draft with the wide receiver room in the state that it's in currently. It's bad news bears, y'all. And there's a laundry list of evidence from just the Cowboys themselves suggesting as much. Okay. You start talking about, that's how Tristan Hill happens. When you're desperate for one position because you've neglected it for too long, you get a Tristan Hill type situation. You overvalue your own grades because of the need. The need makes your opinion, your view on whoever it is that's playing that position, it distorts the reality. Your perspective changes, whether you want it, whether you know it or not, whether you want it to or not. All right. So, point being, you've got CeeDee Lamb and a bunch of prayers behind that. It is what it is. Okay. At least at the cornerback position, because yes, that alongside running back and defensive tackle are as glaring of a need. But the thing is, guys, what y'all got to consider, okay? There's two corners that are playing, sometimes three. You at least have guys who can say that they've started football games for you, and either that or been a highly touted player. That's Kyer Elam. Okay, Kalen Carson, Israel Mukwama. Those guys have been around. Izzy has. Kalen's only entering year 2. Massive question mark in his own right. But at least he's started football games for you last year. Jalen Tolbert, he started some football games for you too, but that was also just out of necessity, right? So best case scenario, and I'm talking best, he's a questionable wide receiver 3 in this league. As of today, he's wide receiver 2. And then it's Jonathan Mingo, Jalen Moreno-Cropper, Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, Kevontae Turpin, Ryan Flournoy. And I'm probably missing one, maybe 2. Those are camp bodies at this point, okay? A lot of guys, you got about 6 or 7 guys that are going to be competing for 3 spots. The Cowboys may only open the season on their 53 with, at this rate, they're only going to have 5 wide receivers on their roster. And Kevontae Turpin is included in that, by the way. I said what I said about his contract not indicating that he's actually a receiver. He's not, but they listed him as a receiver last year. So that's what I'm talking about, is this contract doesn't change anything as far as how they view him or how they plan to deploy him. Maybe this coaching staff has a better plan, but once again, it's not the contract that's going to require that. You get what I'm saying? So it's CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Tolbert, probably Jonathan Mingo, considering you just traded a 4th-round pick for him. Even whether he's earned it or not, he's probably going to be on the roster. And then Kevontae Turpin, that's 4. Okay. That leaves 1 spot. They could draft 2. And then Jalen Tolbert's job's at stake. So, yes, you need help at defensive tackle. You still need, like I said, I've been talking about this for as long as I can remember now. The Cowboys' the biggest, their number one shortcoming in all of the biggest game, their recent, their big games and just humiliating losses. Right? The biggest games that they've played against playoff caliber opponents, they've gotten beat, but not just beat. They've gotten bullied because they couldn't control a gap. All offseason long, this whole coaching staff, every chance they got to talk about this team and their plan for how to retool it. Got to get more physical. Got to get tougher. So far, they haven't done that. Okay, but at least they've addressed Osa Odigizua at the top of the market at the defensive tackle position. They have a starter in Osa. They have a starter at one tech because it's a guy that in Mozzie Smith that they invested heavy draft capital in. And he actually has, believe it or not, I know the narrative on him is still way, way down, but when you stop asking him to be somebody he's not and actually ask him just to be the run stopper that he was in college, it's amazing what happens when you just don't put too much on the plate of a rookie. The transition is already difficult enough as it is. I've also talked about why at the defensive tackle spot, it's more difficult than almost every other position to translate, except with the exception of quarterback. I think it's the number 2 most difficult position to find true difference makers at the defensive tackle position because those guys, unlike offensive linemen, are tasked with wrestling with oftentimes 2 other grown men who are black belts in technique and hand fighting, and not to mention 320 plus pounds. Okay, so DT is tough, but they at least have 2 starters and 1 depth piece behind Osa. Justin Rogers, you could say that he's on the roster too and mention his name as a potential guy that you can fill in, but that's still a guy that was a 7th-round pick a year ago, and it's still a guy that they cut. His rookie year, they cut him. They signed him back to the practice squad last year because he went unclaimed. Or actually, no, I think he had a short stint. The reality is the league has told us what Justin Rogers at this state of his career is, okay? And that is not enough. So you've got that at the defensive tackle spot. You've got linebacker was in the same dire straits prior to last week. But the cornerback position is the same way. The running back position is the same way. But the thing is at running back, most teams are only playing 1. Right, we're starting to kind of see that pendulum swing. I've talked about that in recent past too. Right, the NFL, there's ebbs and flows. It's a chess match, an ever-evolving chess match of offenses, defenses, and their coordinators that are doing things differently and adapting and changing the way that they operate. So it's like forcing, the spread and tempo movement, forced lighter and more versatile defenders onto the field. More athletic, more guys that can cover. Nickel coverage is most defenses' base these days because you got to have 5 DBs on the field because teams are deploying 3 and 4 receivers all the time. So linebackers get lighter to account and make up for the more pass heavy offenses, and then once by the time the defense adjusts, they catch up. They're able to match up and for lack of a better term, meet the opposing offense at the podium with force and enough nuance in their own right. Okay, now by that time, teams sort of retool and rebuild the way that their defense is structured and the skill sets from all their players, especially in the front 7. that by the time that adjustment happens, things are already swinging back in the opposite direction. So now more teams are going heavier personnel, more teams are condensing the formation, more teams are playing multiple running backs, fullback, H-back, whatever. Like the Cowboys with Hunter Lipke. A lot of people got excited about that too. It's the game is it's ever evolving. Okay, so physicality is coming back, but even still, with that in mind, most teams are only playing with one running back on the field most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. Most teams almost always have at least two receivers on the field. And as of right now, there's only one that you can confidently say is a starter in this league. So something's in the pipeline, okay? It's in the pipeline at the corner position. It's in the pipeline at the receiver position. Why? Because there has to be. Remember this message last week? Let me go ahead and just play this for y'all because I still stand by what I said. When the Kaiir Elam trade went down, this was just between 24 and 48 hours after I was borderline chastised for even remotely mentioning that the Cowboys front office wasn't done yet, that they had something in the pipeline coming, that they should, that I was preaching patience to the fan base, basically. I think this was last Tuesday. The trade for Kaiir Elam happened on Wednesday, pretty sure, March 12th, whenever that was. I think that was a Wednesday. And I had this to say. Cowboys just did something, all right? They acquire bag on here, but walking into the gym, so forgive me. They acquire Kaiir Elam, cornerback from the Buffalo Bills, former first-round pick. Hasn't gone very well, right? That's first thing to consider here. So temper your expectations, but this is a risk-free rental. And I think a smart move. I like it. It's desperate because, like I said last night when I mentioned, they have to do something. That somebody has to be in the pipeline. They have to acquire, they have to trade, they got to do something, right? And you guys label me a homer. You said you're delusional, you're a homer, whatever it is that you guys say. So this is just a necessary reminder, okay? Number one, necessary for the Cowboys too, obviously. They swap picks on a risk-free one-year rental for a player with upside and traits, okay? Change of scenery can sometimes be good. Necessary because otherwise they could not line up and play football. But number two, a reminder to you, the next time you want to jump to conclusions whenever you read something that I write or watch something that I post on any platform, whatever it is, bite your tongue. Because while, yes, I'm not a pro at this. I'm not perfect. I will continue to ever evolve and I will continue to ever improve. I'm always learning. I love that. But I'm pretty good at what I do. And I know a lot about what I'm talking about. All right. That's it. We'll talk more about this tonight. Can't wait to see you guys on the live YouTube at the Lando Show. Okay. And of course, the Osmo Pocket 3, which is my webcam camera of choice. So it's like the first 15, 20 minutes or so are cool, and then it starts to get shoddy. I don't know how to fix that. We will work on it and fail forward. Continue doing so, okay? Don't forget, we're making the push to 4,000 giveaway at 5,000 subs, courtesy of Waggle. I've got some, some flexibility to do some pretty fun things. I want to be able to give back. I want to be able to continue impacting and inspiring this community of people here. And I want to continue, obviously, reporting the facts and giving you guys the below the surface truth, the truth that you, of course, deserve as much as anything. No more of that fake take stuff. Turn that TV off and tap into myself and the members much like me, alongside me in this industry, all over the YouTube streets and otherwise. Because we're doing the dirty work, okay? And we're giving you everything that you could possibly imagine and then some as to the current state of this team, this franchise, this roster, how they operate, and what the future looks like, all the time, all the truth, all the details. Okay. As much as you can possibly handle. I teased at the beginning. I'm going to pivot because I've talked for 30 minutes now, and I want to try to make sure that I stay around that mark. So we'll talk about the Cowboys' new quarterback tomorrow. It's already written on cowboyscountry.com. So if you want to know my thoughts on that position right now, and you don't feel like waiting until tomorrow when I elaborate in a little bit more detail, please feel free to check that out. If you type in, let me share my screen again just to show y'all how easy it is. If you type in Dallas Cowboys, Landon-Holifield, Athlon Sports, it'll take you to this page right here. And you can see everything I've written. It's all organized for you perfectly. You just go down the list. All the offseason happenings, we've talked about it for the most part. Okay. And everything else that we don't write about, we cover here as well. So these two things are kind of working together. But that's the best way to keep up with me, outside of also just following me on Twitter as well. That's where I'm interacting throughout the day. A few different times a day, I'll pop in, try to answer as many questions as possible. Same handle at the Orlando Show. You can catch me over there. But YouTube is where this is where the bulk of my work will be. And this is where I want you to be. I want you to hang out with me here. If you missed last week's discussion with Foots, that was a fantastic one as well. Some fire. If I do say so myself, and shout out to him for continuing to be a pioneer, a trailblazer in this industry for us little guys like me. The Lando Show in its current state is not the Lando Show without people like Foots. Okay. So make sure you're checking him out. We got some other collaborations coming in the near future too, and some more breakdowns as far as what to expect in the draft, and guys that we like, guys that we're identifying, guys that this team values based on top 30 day visits, and absolutely needs based on holes and glaring weaknesses, right? Controlling the middle of the both sides of the trenches. But needless to say, something is in the pipeline still. I believe that. Otherwise, why did you create $55 million in cap space? You didn't have to. Okay. They still got plenty of money to spend. Don't forget also the salary cap is not real today. Cap hell is a myth. And the teams who really want to aggressively spend and kick the proverbial can down the road to add as much ammunition to their roster, they really understand what I'm about to tell you. $43 million of cap space can get you 53, 63, 73, $83 million in player if you really wanted to, because they understand that the ever-increasing, ever-ballooning salary cap will more than make up for much of the deferred money, the dead money that you're kicking down the line. It's offsetting that because of the value of the NFL dollar. But regardless of how aggressive or willing the Cowboys are to pay, to spend, remember, cash payables, it's a negative credit. Signing players in free agency, that's a big check. That's money right out the bank. You take a hit. That's spending. It's different. The way that the bank account works with free agency and the draft is very different. It's very important to remember here when it comes to the way that the Joneses prefer to operate. Don't forget that. What do I mean? Put it in the comments and maybe I'll respond to your question. Or show up tomorrow and ask the question while we're live having this discussion. Okay. You can support the channel via Cash App or Venmo if you want to. There's also the super chat function is fully available. My Cash App will be and Venmo will be included in the description if that's the way that you prefer to support me in the channel. But the best and easiest way, like I always say, is to do one of two things. You either subscribe if you're not already. It's totally free and worth every penny. or you hit the like button and you share. Share it with a friend. That's how we grow here. 4,000, we're counting down. Just a few more subs to get to that milestone, and then we'll continue making the trek towards 5 and then pushing towards 10 and so on and so on and so on. But I can't do that without your help, okay? This is the Lando Show. I'm Lando with Sports Below the Surface here. Tune in with me tomorrow, 8 o'clock, live at the Lando Show here. And remember, you're always forgiven, never forsaken. Prayer changes things, and the war is already won. Talk to you soon.